Vaccinated tourists can now cross the border, but vaccinated asylum seekers still can't. That's because of Title 42. It's this pandemic-era policy that essentially bars asylum from the U.S. And in Tijuana, this is the result of Title 42. A makeshift migrant camp just south of the U.S. border. Roughly 700 men, women, and lots of children live here. The camp is a sprawling labyrinth of interconnected tents. People sleep on concrete floors. They're enclosed in a chain-linked fence, surrounded by police.
Es muy feo estar aquí en esta situación. No estamos por gusto.
That's a woman we're calling Carmen to protect her identity. She says the situation here is very ugly. She and her 2 children fled their home state of Michoacán after cartel members killed her brothers and kidnapped her oldest son.
Mi vida corre peligro y sé que si regreso o si ellos saben dónde estamos, pues nos van a matar por no querer trabajar con ellos.
Carmen's story isn't all that unique here at the camp. Most of her neighbors fled similar violence in Central America and other parts of Mexico. Gina Garibo is a social worker who visits the camp 3 times a week to check up on people like Carmen.
Es muy cruel, ¿no? Es muy cruel, ¿no?
People in the camp are desperate, she says. They have nowhere else to go. And one of the hardest parts of Garibo's job is not having an answer to questions she keeps hearing over and over again.
Siempre nos preguntan eso, ¿no?
Any news? What's going to happen to us? What options do we have? So why do we have hundreds of desperate people stranded in a makeshift camp just south of our border? It's because of Title 42, a public health order that the Trump administration implemented in March 2020 and the Biden administration has kept in place. Title 42 allows border officials to turn back asylum seekers without due process.
This is effectively the most sweeping ban on asylum at the border in U.S. history. It's a pretty radical policy.
Normally, the asylum process works like this. Someone flees their home because of some type of persecution. They arrive at the border, tell an official that they're afraid to go back home. If they pass a credible fear interview, they're allowed into the U.S. and start an asylum case in court. But Title 42 lets border officials turn people away without giving them the credible fear interview or letting them see a judge. Neusner says using the pandemic to justify Title 42 is disingenuous, especially since the White House reopened the border to vaccinated travelers.
The fact that now vaccinated tourists and shoppers are allowed to enter, but vaccinated people who are fleeing violence and are in urgent danger are not, just is further evidence that this policy has never been about public health.
Carmen, the mother from Michoacán, has been living in the camp since April. She doesn't understand how the federal government can justify letting one group of people cross, but not the other.
Pues se me hace muy injusto.
It's not fair, she says. They don't want to be at the camp, but they don't feel safe in Mexico. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention issued the public health order. When we asked why the asylum seekers are still barred from crossing the border, they said to ask the White House. The White House didn't respond to our questions. Gustavo Solis, KPBS News.